Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So spring is in the air, Easter is coming up, so I thought I'd do a super cute striped Easter cake. It's gonna have pastel colors, it's gonna have mini eggs on top, and it's gonna look really, really cute. And I'm gonna be doing a technique using this scraper. So I have covered a few tutorials on striped buttercream. I have yet to use this irregular stripe, but I think it's gonna be really cute with different colors coming up the sides. So as usual, I'm starting off with a 6-inch ready filled and crumb coated cake. And I've got some ready-made Swiss meringue buttercream, which I've kept white because I want that to be the base of the cake. I've put it in a piping bag because it is easier to apply that second coating with, but you can always go on directly with a palette knife. I've cut a small opening at the top of my piping bag, and I'm going to start piping this buttercream all the way around the cake. So I want a decent layer of this buttercream. So I'm starting off right at the bottom where it touches the cake board, and then going on top with the same pressure. So I'm keeping the same thickness of buttercream all the way up the cake, using my turntable to help me. So don't worry if it's not perfect because we're going over the whole thing anyway. But just to get an overall even coating of the second layer of buttercream. So all the way up to the top, and then the top itself. So I'm going around the outside first, and then filling up the middle. So rather than going on with a scraper straight away, I want to even out the buttercream just a little bit because it will make achieving the stripes that little bit easier. So I'm going to focus on the top first with my palette knife and just spread the buttercream around whilst turning it. Firstly, this gets rid of most of the air bubbles and just ensures that all that buttercream is even. Now I can start flattening it out by angling the palette knife and turning to flatten out the top of the buttercream. And especially when using these striped scrapers, you want that buttercream kind of overspilling the edge because otherwise it won't catch on the scraper. And wipe any excess away. Nice and flat. So now I'm going to go round the sides with the palette knife. I'm not scraping or smoothing anything. I just want to make sure that the overall layer is pretty even. So I'm going to move backwards and forwards with my palette knife, just closing the gaps in between those lines of piped buttercream. So similar to what I was doing on top of the cake, but just around the sides. And you can start to see the buttercream getting that little bit smoother too. So now it's time to scrape. So I always focus on the bottom corner, but using one of these scrapers isn't like a normal scraper. Usually I angle the scraper quite close to the cake, but we want the grooves of the scraper to show. So I am gonna come away more than I usually would, but it's always good to start that little bit softer. So I'm gonna place the scraper on, make sure it's nice and straight, and go on with a light pressure. And what will happen, it won't look like it's doing much at first. It's starting to catch the buttercream where the grooves are. So I'm going to go around a few times at first and then come off and then focus on getting that buttercream smooth. So I can already notice a few gaps that aren't being touched by the scraper. So I'm actually going to use this excess to fill those in. One like here and a couple more here. And then back on with the scraper. So using this scraper does take a lot of patience, but you do get there in the end. When the grooves become more apparent, then you can start pushing in a little bit more. And that really smooths out the buttercream in between. So when you get more defined stripes, now it's about smoothing out that buttercream. So the action I'm doing is the same I usually would if I was using a normal scraper. Just gently going over, and all I'm focusing on is these outer parts. I'm not worried about the inner parts because I'm going to fill them afterwards. So even if you start seeing cake, that's okay. But I'm finishing off with these long strokes with the scraper until I'm happy with the result. So it's really important to put your scraper back in the same place each time. So I am really happy with that. Like I said, I'm focusing on this smooth outer coating. Now, the important bit, this has to get extremely cold before we put some color in between the gaps. So I'm gonna put this in the freezer for at least 10 minutes. Even 15 is good to make sure that this coating is completely solid before filling in with more coloured buttercream. So this outer coating is completely solid, and what I did is colour the remaining buttercream in a pastel blue, yellow and pink. Because it's Easter, I thought these were nice spring colours. So I'm going to go up the side of the cake, filling in the gaps. So I've only cut a small hole at the end of these piping bags to make it as exact as possible. So I'm going to start off at the very bottom. And I'm going to try and get more or less the thickness of the white buttercream, because I don't want too much excess at this point. Keeping my hand quite steady as I do this, and then go in the next colour. And on this scraper, all the grooves are quite small, so I'm only filling in these narrow areas. And of course, you could do this with any colour scheme, and you can even start off with a different colour to begin with, so it doesn't have to be white. I personally prefer to do white because then you can get more creative with the colours on top. And it also makes sure that you don't run out of coloured buttercream. Now what happens is that the buttercream actually starts to harden because that white buttercream is cold, so you do have to work quite fast. And once you're done, you want to get your regular side scraper. So this has no edges because we're going to spread this colour out. So you've got the resistance of the cold white. So this is easier to do than normal. Start scraping away that excess, and at first it looks like you're ruining the whole cake, but you're not. Just have to trust it. Let it spread out, and then you'll start to see, after it's spread, it will neaten up. Because that white is hard, it protects you scraping anything away. After a build up, I can scrape into a bowl and repeat. So at any point, if you need to add more color, you can do this now. But in general, just scraping it and smoothing it out fills in all the holes. And you want to keep going until all the white is clear from color. So obviously I didn't clean off the top corners beforehand because I got them nice and cold. I can trim them with my palette knife. So because it's cold, they should just come off in pieces at a time. And because I'm not going on with drips or anything, I like to get that sharp corner. They're nice sharp corners, and there really isn't another way to get as perfect stripes as these other than using a side scraper, depending on what look you're after. But this is nice and colourful, and I'm going to continue that colour by putting some decoration on top. So I'm going to keep this cake quite simple, at least for me quite simple, and I'm going to make egg nests on the top, but they're going to be multicoloured because I love colour. And I'm going to use the excess of all this buttercream and place it into the same piping tip here. So here I've got a grass tip, which is a tip with lots of holes in the end. I'm going to place it in the glass, fold the edges down, and now I can pipe each individual colour inside. So starting with the blue, I'm aiming for the side so I can fit the others in, then the pink, and then the yellow. And then lift up the bag. And before I give it a shake, I want to squeeze all the colours down at the same time so they reach the end, which means they all come out at the same time. Like that. So now I've got my multicolored piping bag, I can start piping on my nests. So I've also got my mini eggs here, which I want to put on the cake before I eat them all. They are literally my favorite chocolate. So I'm gonna pipe on little individual nests around the outside. I'm gonna place them on like a clock, starting here, squeezing and letting that buttercream fall out. Wow, look at those colors. Beautiful. And directly opposite. and then place the eggs inside. So I think I'll go for 3 in each nest. So I actually love the simplicity of this cake, but I feel there's something missing, and for me, that touch of gold leaf will just elevate it a little bit. So I'm gonna get a brush and just put on a little bit of gold leaf down the front. Maybe on the nest as well. And a few gold sprinkles on the top, just to elevate it that little bit more. And to finish off, a touch of magic, my edible glitter. So there we go, this year's Easter cake. Try this out yourself, especially if you've never tried the stripe technique before. That could be used for any sort of cake, but for me this is a perfect Easter cake, especially if you're celebrating someone's birthday at the same time. You can find all my recipes on my channel, so head over there if you are new. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and like this video, and please comment below on any other techniques or videos that you want to see. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you very soon.